Hello and welcome to another edition of Final Cut Pro Help Live. My name is Jared Ewing. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful weekend there. It is a Monday that we're recording on right now and streaming to you. If you do have any questions and you're watching this live, go ahead and put those into the chat there, and I'd be glad to get them. I did get a question around managing media, and there was a specific error message that came up on the screen that I wanted to discuss, and it is there in the description there on the video, and I'm going to recreate it here for you, but it's just about managing media. So I have an empty version of Final Cut here. I'm going to try to quickly speed through this, and then I'll go back and analyze every little step here. So I'm going to hit Command-N to create a new library here. I'm going to call it my test library. Make sure you name everything. I'm going to save it in the movies folder. Hit save. And now I'm going to use Command-I to import a media clip. And I actually have on the desktop here this clip of an octopus, right? Pretty straightforward, nothing too complex here. I'm going to say import all. Now I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to call this my test project. Again, make sure you're naming stuff. I always see those untitled projects, and it's just difficult to organize things if it's all untitled. And after creating that project, you'll now see I have a library with a project and a clip. I'm going to add this clip to the project, and there it is on my timeline, right? And normally, if you were doing this and actually editing a video, you might have multiple clips that you work with. But here's what the question was. So in the event here, which is the top left area, our browser here, if I go into the event and I hit Command Delete, so not just delete, if you just hit delete, it's just rejecting the clip, but I'm actually going to use Command Delete, and that deletes that clip out of the event. If I go to the library here, it's not there. If I look at the event, it's not there. All we have is the project. So if I go down to my project where this clip is currently living and I hit the delete key, I'm going to get this message. And this is the message we're going to dive into during this episode here. And it says that the media moving to the trash. So basically this clip or this piece of media that I'm hitting delete on is going to be moved to the trash. And because one or more media files will be moved to the trash, and since they're the last reference to them, they're going to be deleted. If you have external files, that's separate, and we'll talk about that too. But this can be a little bit confusing because all of your media should be in an event, and if it's not in the events, then you get into this weird situation here. So this is what we're going to talk about. Basically, what's happening here, if I hit cancel, when you have your clips in a project, you don't have to worry about losing those clips because you deleted them from the event. Now, this is kind of a special use case. I really don't recommend having clips only in a project here because it's very easy to lose those clips. So if you delete a clip and you get this message saying that this media is being moved to the trash, we're actually deleting this, it is an important message that you want to keep an eye on because this clip, essentially you're saying get rid of it everywhere. And so the question I got on one of the tutorials on the full class that we have there is when this message comes up, how come we're getting this? I thought that every clip had to be in an event, and where is this clip actually stored when it's only in the project there? So we're going to break this all apart, explain it so that it's a little bit clearer for you. Again, if there's any questions about this whole process, please let me know. Now, to go through this, I'm going to back up and start over again. I'm actually going to go up to my library here. I'm going to right-click on it and say Reveal in Finder. We're actually going into the Finder here to see it. There's my test library, and I'm going to use Command Delete on the keyboard to move this one to the trash. Back here in Final Cut, I'm going to close the library as well so that we start out with nothing. I'm also going to make Final Cut a little bit smaller here as far as a window goes so that we can see the Finder on the left and in kind of real time here, and on the right side there, we have Final Cut. So let's do our icon view so that we can see this. I'm going to use Shift Command H to go to the home folder, and we're going to do everything in the movies folder here. To make this a little bit clearer too, I'm going to click on one of these items, hit Command A to select them all, and I'm just going to move them down a little bit. So they're still in the movies folder. They're now just out of the way for our purposes here. Okay, So let's go back through all those steps, and I'm going to analyze what's happening at each step. And hopefully this is clear for you and helps explain what's happening in Final Cut and the way that it handles media. This stuff is really great to know if you're working with Final Cut here. So again, we're going to click on Open Library here. I'm going to create a new library, and I'm going to call it my Final Cut Pro Help library. And you don't have to put the words library or anything else in these names, but you should put a name. If it's just called Untitled Library, it's very hard to keep track of those things, and especially if you're troubleshooting, that can be difficult to go back through. So just make sure you give these things a name. Try to get in the habit of a naming convention. So I'm going to put in the words library and event in the name so that it's clear, and I'm going to hit save. So notice once I did that, back here in the Finder, which is where our files are stored, in my movies folder, that's what this path is at the bottom. In the movies folder, it actually created this new library, which is this purple icon with the 4 stars. That's the Final Cut Pro Help library. So that's our library. And inside the library, every library has to have an event. So that's what today's date is right here. That's letting us know the event. You can go ahead and click on this name and rename it if you want to. So I'm just going to call this the Final Cut Pro Help event. And again, you don't have to name it, but naming things can help you stay organized. So we now have a library, and inside that library is an event here. Okay, pretty straightforward. I can hit the Import Media button or Command I to bring in some media. And in this case, I am going to bring in that octopus clip again from the desktop. You can import media from wherever you want, but in this case, I'm importing it from the desktop. And over on the right side, I'm going to add it to the existing event that I already created, which is, again, what was in the background here. So this Final Cut Pro Help event, that's where we're going to add the media. You could create a new event if you wanted to. And the next thing, this here is really important. We're going to copy that file to the library. If you're newer to video editing and managing your files and you don't want to have to manually manage everything, copy to library is a good choice. I have other videos on this channel that go into that even deeper, and we'll kind of explain it too a little bit going forward. So those are the 2 important things on the right side of it. The rest of it I'm not going to worry about. And then at the lower right corner, I'm going to hit Import All. And this clip's pretty short. If I click on it, it'll tell us how much time that clip is. It's about 10 seconds long, or 20 seconds long. So it's not anything too complex. It imports almost immediately. If you have a larger clip, much longer clip, that's maybe a couple gigs in size or longer, it may take time for that clip to import. And that's a little important to know too, because if your clip is in the process of importing and maybe Final Cut closes or you lose power on your computer, something weird happens, it's possible that this clip is not actually in the library just yet. At the top left corner, you have your background tasks window, which for me right now has a check mark in it because everything's done. If you click on it, you'll get this little window that shows you your background tasks. And this will show you when it's importing media, kind of where it's at in that process. So if you want to monitor that, you totally can. Now, that clip has been imported. It looks great. I see it here. Now I want to use it in a project. So I can hit Command N or click on this new project button to create a project. And again, same as everything else. Make sure you name this. Got questions today from people, and I look at their videos and what they're sending me to kind of analyze it. And it says untitled project or untitled event. I mean, these untitled things are it's fine if you do that. Just know that it can get you in trouble when you're trying to troubleshoot stuff here. So make sure that you know which things are which. If you're newer to it, it can certainly help to name it as a project, an event, and a library. Kind of validates that you understand what each part is. So we're going to create that project, which we know with Final Cut, if we're editing videos or putting videos together, those are projects. And projects or timelines, which the timeline area is this area at the bottom of Final Cut. Timeline and project are used very interchangeably here in Final Cut. And then I say, okay, that looks good. I'm going to click and drag across part of this clip and drag it down onto my timeline or my project to add it. Looks good. I like to use Shift Z to zoom to fit the timeline. And now we're taking advantage of this area at the bottom. Okay, so now let's take a step back and see what we have so far and where all of these files are, and make sure that you have an understanding of it. And we're going to start here in the project and work our way backwards. So we have this project, and this clip that's being used in this project is actually being referenced from what's in the event. So if I right click or control click on the clip that's in the project here on the timeline, I can go down and say reveal in browser. You can also use the shortcut Shift F. So with the clip selected, just do Shift F, and that will highlight the clip here in the browser, just to show you where that clip is. So again, if it's not selected and I have it selected on the timeline, Shift F, notice it goes and highlights just that range of what was used in that clip. So we're starting to go backwards. We're saying, okay, where is this clip? Shift F. It reveals it in the browser, and I can see it's right here. Well, it's got to be somewhere on the computer. So in the browser here, you can right-click on it and go down and say Reveal in Finder, or Shift Command R to reveal where that clip is. And when we do that, notice it brings up a new Finder window. We're now outside of Final Cut, and we can see where this octopus clip lives. And again, I like to show this path bar that's at the bottom, which you can go up to the View menu, and there's an option to show the path bar. Right now it says Hide Path Bar, but that's just this path at the bottom. So go up to View, say Show Path Bar, and we can see that this octopus clip, if I expand this out, lives in a folder called Original Media, which is inside a folder that's the name of our event, and that's inside of the library. And again, that library is the same one that's back here in the Movies folder, which is in your Home folder or your User folder. And that's inside Users under Macintosh HD, which is my computer's storage device or hard drive. Okay? Now, what's important to note there is this octopus clip is not the same one that's on the desktop, right? This clip that's on the desktop is a separate file, even though visually they are identical. It is a separate file that's on the desktop. So I can delete what's on the desktop. I don't need this octopus clip that's sitting on the desktop because it copied it into the media folder, and that happened when we imported that clip. Okay, so that's where the clip is. The project that's here is stored inside of the event as well, which is inside of our library. Everything that's in Final Cut is stored somehow in a library and connected to it. But that shows us where the media clip is and where the project is. So if you wanted to move this library maybe to another computer or another hard drive, what I'd recommend doing here is right-clicking on the Final Cut library, say Reveal in Finder. It'll show you where it is out here, and then you can drag that to maybe an external hard drive or a different storage device to actually move that file. Okay, so that's kind of a rough overview of how things are organized. Let's go back here into Final Cut, and I'm back here in my project, and I look at the clip that's up here in the event that is being used here, and let's go ahead and select this clip and do what I did earlier, which was Command Delete. So I'm going to do Command Delete, and by doing Command Delete, you are fully deleting that clip out of the event, which is outside of the library as well. Notice if I click on the event or the library, it's gone. I can do Command Z, since I just did that step, and it brings the clip back. Now that's different from rejecting the clip. Instead of doing Command Delete, if you just hit the Delete key, it marks that section as rejected. And you can go up to the top right of the browser and say, I want to see just the rejected clips, and it'll show you that clip with a red bar at the top. Or if you say to show all clips, you'll be able to see that, and the red one's letting us know it's rejected. Rejecting a clip is a great way to go through and organize media when you don't actually want to remove anything just yet, or maybe you want to reject a portion of the clip. That's a good way to do that. But if you're trying to get rid of the entire clip, Command Delete is telling Final Cut, hey, I want to delete this clip. I want to get rid of it. So that is now what we're going to run into with this clip being on the timeline and getting that error message. If I hit delete, notice now we get that message that's saying, hey, we're moving this media to the trash, so you're actually getting rid of that. Now let me back up just a step here and hit cancel, and cancel again. Where is this actual media file right now? because we don't see it in the event, but because it's used in a project, it's got to be in this library somewhere. But you're not going to see it right now in the browser, and that's kind of a problem because this clip is only in this one project. So you can do a couple things here, but if you remember earlier, we right-clicked on it and said reveal in browser or Shift F. If we do Shift F, notice that clip comes right back into the event, and there it is. It's as if we didn't do Command Delete. It actually is putting it back into the event in that case. All right, so that's one thing to note, is that if you do go into your events and you do Command Delete on a clip, but it's still in use down here, you can put it back by doing Shift F with that clip, and it'll show it back in the browser there. Now, another part of it, let's do Command Delete, and let's just say right now, where is this clip? If it's not in the event here and in the browser, where is it? Well, let's go outside of Final Cut. Let's go over to our Finder here. I'm going to right-click on the library, and if you don't have a right-click, you can do a secondary click by doing a Control-click, and then there's an option that says Show Package Contents. Little warning here, don't go into the packages of anything if you don't understand what's inside of them and the consequences. You can really mess up a Final Cut library by doing this. But in this case, I'm going to show those contents just to see what's inside. And notice we have one folder here that's the name of our event. And I know if I double click on this, I'll see that original media folder. And if I double click on that, there's the octopus clip. So Final Cut knows when a clip is being used in a project and you delete it from the event, it knows not to actually delete the media file because it still needs it for use in the project here. So if we go into the project in Final Cut and hit delete on that media, and you get this clip that says, hey, this media is going to be moved to the trash because it's the last time that it's being used, what that means is this clip on the left here that's in the Finder, that's on your storage drive, that's what's going to be deleted. So if I click on OK here, notice on the left side in the original media, that clip disappears because it is no longer in use in Final Cut in your current event or your current library. And if I open up the trash, I can see that clip's in the trash. And once you actually empty the trash, that's when you'll fully get rid of it. Now I have a couple other things in there from deleting files earlier. Here's the trash can and some other files that I have, but there's the octopus clip right there. So worst case scenario, if you deleted this and all of a sudden realize it's not there, you may be able to go into your trash, find it, and you could then bring it back onto your desktop or re-import it somewhere. Of course, with all this, I always like to plug having a backup anytime I can. I mean, make sure you're backing up your media. We can always recover stuff. We can always bring things back if you have a time machine backup or another form of backup. And I have other videos on the channel to go into that. And so it's really important to have copies of your media. Okay, so that's that part of it. Let's go through another scenario. I'm going to do Command I and go ahead and import that same clip off of the desktop. Hit Import All. And notice how that clip gets added back here to our original media. And it's in there and it's good. Now, let's go ahead and add that clip to the project. Do Shift Z again. There's my clip. Now, if for some reason you're kind of doing this in a reverse and you're in the Finder and you went into the original media and you went and deleted this clip, I'm going to do Command Delete to send that to the trash. If you delete something outside of Final Cut and you're in that library and you go back into Final Cut, you might see this very obvious red screen that, hey, you're missing a file, like something's not right. And it's because we deleted it from the original media folder inside the Final Cut project, or inside the Final Cut package, library package there. That is why I don't recommend going into the Final Cut libraries using the Finder if you don't know the consequences of moving stuff around. Now, we have it on the desktop here, so I can just hold the Option and drag it back into the original media folder. And then when I click back on, not on music, when I click back on Final Cut, we can see that clip is back in there. All right. So that is one thing that you can do there with the original media. And again, all this is coming out because we do Command Delete on the event media, and then we deleted it out of the project, we were getting this moving media to the trash, and it's letting us know one or more of the media files will be moved to the trash since it is the last reference anywhere in this library. Now there's this other line at the bottom here that I want to go over that says external files remain where they are. So what is that part of it? So let me go ahead and delete this. I'm going to get rid of it. Say, okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and do Command I again. We're going to import that file in. Only this time on the right side, instead of copying the file to the library, which is what I've been doing, I'm going to say leave that file in place. Leaving files in place means leave it wherever it is. In this case, it's on the desktop, but leave it where it is. But still, I need to bring it into Final Cut. So we'll hit Import All, and a couple things happen. Almost identical to what happened before is this file got imported into the library. I can click and drag it into my select part and drag it into my project here, just like before. Everything's working the same. But if you notice on the back here on in the Finder in the library, and again, this is you get to this part of it. Let me right click on this clip here in Final Cut and do Reveal in Finder. That's what we're doing here, is revealing that clip in the Finder. The only problem is when I do Reveal in Finder, it goes to the clip that's on the desktop. And the reason is this one that's in our library. And let me just go back here. Let's do column view. I like column view here. So in the Final Cut Pro library, in the Final Cut Pro folder for the event, in original media, there is that clip, but it's just an alias. It's just a pointer. So Final Cut is still making files. It's still putting stuff into the library as far as the Finder here goes, but it is an alias. So when you do Reveal in Finder, it's pointing to the same one that's on the desktop here. Okay, which means if I go and delete this file off the desktop, unlike before when I did copy to library, by removing it off the desktop, we are also removing it from our library here. So that alias is not going to work. Now, right now, it's kind of holding on to it. It's still able to point to it even with it sitting in the trash here. So that's where things can get a little dicey. You want to be careful of how you're working with things. But just know that once you delete it off the desktop, Final Cut no longer has a way to point to it or see that file, and we're gonna lose it. So let's go through the same steps here that we were doing earlier. If I delete this file out of the event by doing Command Delete, we still have it in the project, still plays back, everything works in the project until I hit the delete key on that clip. And just like we saw earlier, we get the same clip, but in this case, it is an external file. So if I click on OK, notice how we no longer have it here in the project or in our library, but the file on the desktop is fine, it's untouched. Because essentially, if I do Command, let's actually go Command Z here, if I do Shift F, essentially this clip that's here in the event, because it's an alias in the library, because it's an alias to this one on the desktop, we don't actually delete or mess with that data. Okay, so again, if we do Command I to import something, if you're choosing this option to leave that file in place, that means Final Cut is not going to delete what's out here on the desktop or on your external drive, wherever you're managing that media. So that is kind of it for that error message as far as what I've had. Again, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat there. But just to summarize, when you're importing media, if you delete that media out of the event, which I don't recommend doing, but if you do delete that media and it's being used in a project somewhere, if you delete that clip from the project and you see this message, when you click OK, you're telling Final Cut, this is it. I no longer want access to that media, and it will delete the file and move it to the trash. So if you go down to the trash and you see a bunch of those clips in there, that's why they're in there. Still taking up space on your computer or on your hard drive until you actually empty the trash, but that's how you get it, and that's how that message works. So I hope that clears things up for you. If you do have any questions, as always, You can send me an email, finalcutprohelp@me.com. You can go on to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, use @FinalCutProHelp. I'll do my best to get back to you there. If you don't get a response from me after a day or two, don't hesitate. You can follow up, let me know, and I'll do my best to get to you. I'm just an individual helping you out, so I only have so many resources to work with here, but trying to get some fun information to you and helpful information to you. So let me know what you want to see next by leaving a comment down below or sending me a message, and I'd be happy to help. You can swing over to the website, anawesomeguide.com, and check out more stuff that we have on there. Otherwise, I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy the week ahead.